Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to the Rebel Pastor YouTube channel. This is Pastor Sky over here in South Korea. Yes, I've been here for over a month now. It's my second video that I've actually made. I'm here once again in my office, and like I have to tell you guys, the acoustics are not that great right now. And my mic isn't that great. It's kind of a wireless at this moment. So, just kind of let me know in the comments if things are okay. Okay, if things are okay, just let me know if it's sounding or it looks fine too. I'm sure the editing team is doing a great job with kind of the lighting and stuff, which is not as great as I would like it to. There's like two circular lights right in front of me, and they're super dim. They're really, really dim. So please bear with it for now until the studio is all set up. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do it, but I am looking forward to finding a place that I can use like permanently while I'm working over here in South Korea. Yeah, I'm in the deep countryside, guys. Like I'm in the countryside where the night is so dark that it's like a scary dark. It's so dark, you can't even see anything ahead of you. Like what I'm used to when you're living in the city is there's lights everywhere. And because there's lights everywhere, you look outside, you know it's nighttime, but there's lighting, right? You get to see what's out there. Here in the countryside, when it's night, it's black. Like it's a thick darkness where you're like, whoa, I have no idea what's beyond what I'm looking at right now. And I think I've told you guys this before. It's one of those places where you're in the countryside and you're like, whoa, someone could kill me and no one would know for weeks. Because, you're in a place where there's not a lot of people and stuff like that too. But either way. So let me just share a couple things with you guys. Oh, actually, before I start to share anything with you guys, I know that a lot of people are out there and you guys are watching this type of content. I know that only like 59% of you are actually subscribing to it, right? So if you like this content, or even if you don't like it and you just want to troll me, go ahead, click that subscribe and like button. Would love to know how you are feeling. And that's kind of the way that we get to communicate with each other, is this subscribe button, the like buttons, and also the comment section too. And the comment section, of course, is very vibrant and lovely. And of course, during these YouTube premieres, it's very nice in the live chat room section too, where there's a ton of people that just talk to each other while this video is going on right now. So if you do like this type of stuff, go ahead, guys, subscribe, like, comment, and if you want to be even more friendly, go ahead and share this video with someone else right now too. Guys, we're on the road to 10K, right? 10K is the goal that we have for 2024, and we're closing in on 6,000, and I'm just hoping that there comes a point where things start to kind of snowball and we can hit 10,000 by the end of this year. I'm very much looking forward to this also. So guys, if anything, the greatest thing you can do for this channel right now at this moment is definitely praying for this channel. If you do that, I think that is even the greatest thing that you can do for my channel. I'd be very grateful for that also. Okay, so very amazing, wonderful week. A lot of crazy and good things happen. And for some reason, it feels like there are a lot more crazy things that happened to me. And I will speak a little bit more about this after, okay? But let me tell you this story, okay? This story is so crazy, it is unbelievable, okay? And some of you out there are gonna be like, okay, Pastor Sky is crazy. Right? So what happened was, I'm in the countryside. It's about 3.5 hours away from Seoul. My friend is visiting from Seoul, so I drove down to meet this person. We had coffee together. We had a lot of talk. We ate whatever it was, right? But after, I realized it was really late for me. I was kind of tired too, to drive all the way back another 3 hours and some odd minutes, right? So I was like, man, you know what? I might as well just stay the night. And one of the great things about Korea is they have something called the jjimjilbang, right? The jjimjilbang is a sauna, and the great thing about it is you can sleep over there, and it's fairly cheap. It's like usually like $10. You go there, you get this amazing shower, you got a hot tub, cold tub, and then there's this common area. Everyone's wearing clothes, and you can just sleep there overnight, and then you can go home, right? So I'm like going, you know what? I might as well go to sauna. I haven't been to a sauna in in like over a decade. So I'm like, all right, let's go. I'm gonna go that place. So I searched and I found a place and I was like, oh, okay, I might as well get my hair cut in this area too the next day. So I go to the sauna and I'm looking for the sauna. So I walk into the building and I get into the elevator, and usually there's a sign that says like sauna is on this floor, right? And I was looking everywhere in the elevator. I couldn't find the button. So I'm like, what is going on? And of course, the elevator doors close and the elevator starts moving already. I'm like, oh man, I gotta find this place. It opens at the first floor and some older man walks in and he presses the 9th floor button, okay? But then he looks at me kind of odd. He's like, you're in this elevator and there's no button pressed. And he looks at me and says, hey, what floor are you going to? And I was like, do you know where the sauna is? He's like, oh yeah, it's underground. It's like 1 floor below. I was like, oh, darn. But since he already pressed the 9th floor, the elevator was already going up to his floor, okay? So that's not the crazy part. The crazy part was, I was talking to him in Korean, but of course, I'm not from Korea. I know Korean, but it's got that like the very Americanized accent to it. And he looks at me and he says, you're from America. And I was like, Canada. He's like, oh, so you're at the sauna because, you're visiting and you don't have a place to stay. And I was like, yeah. And then he's like, don't go to the sauna. You could stay at my place. Okay, so it's already getting crazy, right? So once he said that, imagine what would be going through your mind at that moment. If a stranger in an elevator says, come sleep over at my house. And I was sitting there like going, what? This guy could be like a serial killer that invites like these vulnerable people in the elevator and takes them up to like pretending to be nice, and then he kills them in his apartment kind of thing. And I was like, what? But we're already going up. And I was like going, God, is this right? Like, is this something that I should be doing? Come on, like, God, should I really be doing this? The doors open and he walks out and I follow him. So I'm following him like, God, please, God. I'm scared, right? But then again, you kind of get to the point where you start to reason with yourself again. And I was like, wait a second. This dude is like 5'3" and probably like 100 pounds. And I was like, and this guy's like 60 years old. So I was like, you know what? If anything happens, I'm gonna break this guy in half. Like, I was ready like to get my mind into fighting mode, right? Even if he pulled out a knife, I was just gonna punch the lights out of him kind of thing, right? So here I am like getting ready for like this big battle with this guy. And then he goes to the door and he puts in his button and then he opens the door and he walks in and I look in and like he's living by himself. So I'm like, okay, so if this is a real fight, it'll just be a one-on-one battle. Right? So I could take this guy, right? Even if he has a knife, I'll take this guy out. I'm ready for this, right? And as I walk, this guy's, I'm crazy. I walk a little bit into his house, but what's the first thing I see in front of me? 2 Bibles. One Bible is in Korean and the other Bible is in English. Right? So here's the thing. So if one is in English and one is in Korean, I was like, whoa, this guy's, how many people actually have a Bible opened up? Right? So I was like, oh, you read the Bible? He's like, oh yeah, I'm from the Methodist church here, this, and this. And then we started talking about, oh, I'm a pastor. I used to do this. I was a missionary, yada, yada. And it was like, oh, and then we had just talking about our life, our faith, and what's going on. And it became a little bit more comfortable. But of course, still a little bit skeptical. I'm just like, still, I got to be on guard. God, something can still happen. And then he's like, oh, you want something to drink? He starts pouring the drink. And I sat there like, he could put some like poison or something in there or some drug that will put me to sleep. And then I'll wake up in the morning without my kidneys or something along that line, right? So I was like, oh, what is this, right? So he gives me the cup and he poured it into both of our cups. And I sat there waiting for him to drink first. And he takes the tea and he drinks it first. I was like, and I looked at him like, is he gonna fall over? I was like, well, come on, if he's gonna drink it, it's okay for me. So he drank it. I was like, got it. So then I drank it too, and I'm slowly beginning to trust him a little bit more and more. I don't know why, guys, I was even there in the first place, But I am in this guy's house, this stranger I met not even 5 minutes ago. And then he like gives me a place to sleep. He lets me shower, do all these other different things. And we go to bed. And then in the morning, it's like 5 a.m. in the morning. You know, we wake up, he wakes up, wakes me up. You know, I took my shower, everything else. And then we left the house at like 5:15, right? He's like, oh, there's some places I want to show you, whatever it is. But, you know, he knows I'm a pastor and everything. And guess where he takes me? He takes me to church at like 5:30 in the morning. And this is something that those of you guys may not know, but Korea is one of the most fervent Christian like countries you'll find. Like pre-dawn prayer, going to church and praying before the sun rises is a common thing. It is so common. It is so common in South Korea in these Christian churches. He took me to this nice, like I'm going to show you a picture right here of this nice, beautiful church. And we went in. There's lots of people in there. They're praying. There's someone playing the organ. And they're just sitting there praying to God before they start their day. And it was a really graceful time. It's something that, you know, I do too. But it was just really shocking. Like he didn't even tell me. He's like, oh, let's go to pray. We go in to pray. We spend our time. And then we go out. And then he's like, yeah, come to my office. I went to his office and he's a legit business person. And he's got this, I think it's like an import-export or like sales or marketing company. He takes me in, makes me a cup of coffee, you know, brings me some food. We just start talking the entire time. And then he says, oh, my partner's coming. Like my the co-owner of it. He comes in and this guy's even more fervently spiritual and faithful and loves Jesus. And he's telling me about like 5-6 pastors in his family. And he used to live together with Christian missionaries from the UK. Just all these things he's telling me about. And he's like, we're just having a great time talking. They start their day in their business by reading the Bible together and praying, which is awesome. So I'm just like, you know, by this point, if they wanted to kill me, they would have killed me by now, kind of thing, right? And we had a great time. And he was talking to me like, oh, and he's like, a couple of amazing things happened. Number one is this. He said, hey, if you ever stop, you know, your like preaching or your job ends, if you need a job, just come to us and we'll give you a job. I was like, really? He's like, yeah, we'll give you a job. And I slept over at his house the night before, but he's like, yeah, I'll give you a job. I was like, wow. And then he said, hey, and my apartment is open to you anytime you come to Seoul. I was like, what? So here I have a place to stay all of a sudden. I have a job waiting for me if I ever stop. And what was even cooler was, he was showing me his products and stuff like, yeah, these are the types of things that, you know, he wasn't selling it to me. He's just saying, yeah, these are the things that we sell, like collagen, facial products, and this and that. And he's like, oh, this is our top seller. And we're trying to get into like other countries and like Malaysia or Taiwan or whatever it is. And I was like, oh, I got some friends that do business stuff. I'll connect you to them. They're like, oh, really? And on the spot, I connected to a friend from Malaysia. On the spot, not on the spot, but I already talked to my friend from Taiwan. They're all like, yeah, let's connect and let's network and let's find some, business people are always networking. And I was able to connect them to some friends of mine that were doing business in different countries and stuff. So when I saw that, I thought it was so amazing. I really did. And it's, when you think about it, it's such a scary situation, and you think to yourself that there's only bad things that can come out of this. And it reminds me of the verse I brought you last week. What was that verse? It was Isaiah chapter 55, verse 8 and 9. I'm going to read this for you, okay? And basically what it says is, it says, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. And it's kind of a continuation from last week. But isn't it so out of, it's so out of the realm of how we think that blessings are able to come. Do you know what I mean? Me meeting these amazing, faithful Christian people. And what I found was even cooler too was the person that met me in the elevator, he's been faithful, and his partner's even more faithful, but he promised his partner, right, his business partner, that he wouldn't drink. And before, getting into the elevator, he was deciding to himself, should I go get a drink at the bar or should I just go home? And then he remembered the promise and he says, okay. And then he walked in the elevator and he saw me. And even he was saying, this is not a coincidence. This is from God that we met, right? And that's why, because, we both looked at it as something that God has done, opportunities just kind of opened up to both of us. And I was just so thankful. But isn't it so interesting how God works and he's leading us in such a better way, And it's in a way that's so unorthodox that we would normally think that is crazy. There's no way you should do this. But when you look at the outcome, what do you think? You're like, whoa, this was actually from God, right? Now, I'm not telling you guys, go into strangers' houses when they invite you. I'm totally not saying that. What I'm saying that through this experience, it is amazing and it is awesome to see how God works in ways that are strange, foreign, and even crazy to us. But when you see the final result, it's like, wow, God, you really, really bless me. Like, remember, I was so scared until I was like, oh, there's 2 Bibles and an English one too. The guy spoke English. His partner studied in the States. So I was just like, wow. So there was communication was flowing, being able to talk to each other about God, about Jesus, praying together at church at 5:30 in the morning. And I would say that was such a blessed experience that started off so wild and crazy. But I would say that's something that we should be thinking about also in our everyday lives is when we have that trust and that faith in God, and when we really, really connect, God is going to lead us in ways that we may think is crazy, that we may think that there's no way we should do this. But when it is God that is leading you, it always leads to greener pastures, right? So I hope that all of us here too, and like I said, I'm not telling you guys to go into strangers' houses, like don't be crazy like me, right? But because of this is why I kind of have these types of experiences. Because, people ask me this question is, why do I have such crazy stories all the time? And sometimes people say that I think it's fake. Like, oh, there's got to be a fake. It's got to be a fake story that Pastor Sky is just making things up as he goes. But no, I'm telling you the reason, right? The reason why that things happen to some people and don't happen to others is why. It's actually about risk. It's about risk. It's about taking a risk and wanting more experiences with God. Like, I take risks. I want new experiences. I want to feel God in my life, and I'm willing to take that risk. And of course, you might think to yourself, it's like, oh, do we really need to take those types of risks in our life? And my answer is no, you don't have to take those types of risks, but you do need to take the risks in your area that you know. What does that mean? If you're in business, think about business. Business is basically is all risk. There is no guarantee what's going to work, what's going to make you money, what's not going to make you money. It's all risk. And this is why these super uber successful business people, they take the risk, and most of the time they fail, but it's that one time that succeeds that covers all the losses and gives you like 1,000 times more than what you've put in your entire lifetime. And this is something that I think is like we would all agree with is the bigger the risk, the bigger the consequence. Well, what does that mean? The consequence can be good or bad. So if you take a big risk, your success or failure is going to be at the extremes, the higher the risk actually is, right? And this is something I want to talk to you about today this is about your faith. What does this mean? Your faith is determined by risk. And you're like, your faith, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, what kind of risk are we talking about? So even in your faith, if you take small risks, you will see small results. And my example to you, I talked to a lot of people about this too, is this. For instance, a small risk is, when it comes to you praying for someone, you pray for someone with a headache. That's a small risk. But in that same vein where you're praying for people that need healing, the one who takes the big risk is the one that prays for the person in the wheelchair. That's a big risk. You pray for the person with cancer. You pray for the person that's kind of at the extreme side of it. And it's those big risks that you'll see the greater results. Like I shared this story with you a long time ago in the past too, is there was a time where I was inspired to pray for people and heal them. And I was in the middle of a speech in South Africa, and I told people who wanted healing to come up, whether it's for them or their friends or family, whatever it is. And guess what? Over 20 people came up, and I prayed for every single one of them. I took the risk for everyone. Some people had AIDS. Some people had cancer. Some people had backache. There's lots of different things. And how many of them actually came back and told me that there was a healing? 3. 20 some odd people, and 3 people had miraculous things happen. 3. But what did I have to do? I had to take the big risk and say, anyone, friends, family, yourself, come up right now and you're going to receive some prayer of healing. It wasn't just the people that came up that took the risk. I got to take that big risk too. That's what we do. Small risks, I only work on people with headaches. Then you'll see a small result is, oh, I don't have a headache anymore. But imagine it's someone with cancer and they get healed of cancer, or they're in a wheelchair and they start to walk. Small risks sees small signs and wonders. Big risks show you big signs and wonders. And one of the things that I think that when you look at human psychology, what do we want? Do we want big risk, even though there could be a big result? Or are we a little bit selfish and say, no. I want the minimal amount of risk, but I want maximum results. Or I want a guarantee. It doesn't work that way. It's kind of unfair the way people think, if you think about it. It is unfair the way people think. Let me give you this Bible verse. Okay? Because I want to show you that is completely against God's thinking. It is. In Romans chapter 2, verse 6, it says, God will repay each person according to what they have done. Which means what? God is fair and God is just. God doesn't give things to people that don't deserve it. They must be equivalent, right? And this is where it kind of comes up to some people bringing up the question about, well, what about salvation? Salvation is pretty easy. You listen to the words and then you believe that Jesus is the Messiah. You believe in God, and then, you escape burning hell and you live forever in heaven, forever and ever, eternally in heaven. Isn't that easy if you just need to believe? And I think we got to break this down to realize it's not easy to believe. It's not easy to have faith. You really think it's that easy to believe in someone with all your heart that they are the Messiah, and that if you believe in that person, you will go to heaven? Do you think that is easy, to really, truly believe that someone is the Messiah? There is a God that is invisible, that you cannot hear and you cannot see? If it was that easy, wouldn't more people gain salvation? Because it's not easy to believe. It's not. It's not easy to just believe. It's complicated. Because God is invisible, you cannot see or hear him, it's a huge risk. That's why you need faith. What is the definition of faith? Faith is telling us that it's something that you're believing in, something that you cannot see, and you don't know if it's there, but you believe it's there. You have that faith. You have the hope that it's there. That when you pray, there's actually someone listening to you. There is a huge risk to put your trust into someone that you cannot hear or that you cannot see. I'm telling you right now, we all took a huge risk. Not because we were blind. Why? You cannot 100% believe in your heart that if you believe in this person, you're going to heaven. You couldn't 100% believe that easily. It doesn't happen in an easy way. We all took the huge risk. Not because we were blind, but because we listened, we felt, we understood, we heard the knocking of the door in our hearts where God was saying, I am here. And because of that, we could not deny this spiritual moment in our lives. And we were basically hearing the Holy Spirit speaking to our hearts. But how did it happen? So, I want to explain to you how much risk we actually took. In Romans chapter 10, verse 17, this is one of my favorite verses, right? And in Romans 10:17, it says, consequently, faith comes from hearing the message, and the message is heard through the word about Christ. So how do we actually gain faith? We don't gain faith by just just sitting there like, oh, I think I believe in God. No, we have to listen to the message. To have true faith, you have to listen to the words of God. It is when we hear the words of God, this is when we're able to attain and gain faith. The gospel was preached to us, but it wasn't something you just heard. It wasn't. The gospel has been preached to people all the time. And some people have heard the gospel for years and years, but it was that one moment, everything clicked at the same time. It's that one moment when you hear the gospel and it hits you differently, right? What does that mean? When you look at what Jesus says about people receiving the words of God, everyone open up. Well, you don't have to open up, right? Everyone turn to Matthew 13, verse 15 and 16, right? It says, this is Jesus himself speaking, says, for this people's heart has become calloused. They hardly hear with their ears. They have closed their eyes. Otherwise, they might see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their hearts, and turn, and I would heal them. But blessed are your eyes because they see, and your ears because they hear. And here's Jesus speaking to the disciples, he's telling the disciples, you have done something that is not easy. Why? The people of this world, their hearts have become calloused. You know what it means to callous? It's like rough and hard, and it's like hard to get into. It's not soft anymore. You gotta, when you have calluses, you have to rip them off in order to get to the new skin again, right? The most difficult thing that we did is not hearing with our ears and not seeing with our eyes. And we're like, what do you mean? We went to church and we saw the pastor and we heard him preach. The world will hear and the world will see with their physical eyes and their physical heart. But when we heard the gospel, there was that one moment when you chose to hear with your spiritual eyes and the spiritual heart, right? That's why there's songs that tell us to open the eyes of our heart, open the ears of our heart too, so that we can see and we can feel and we can hear things in a different way, more spiritually. It's not easy. Faith is not an easy thing. This is why so many people come to church often, right? Even for me, I was someone that went to church. I was born and raised in the church. It took me like 10 years hearing the gospel every single week until one day it just hits my heart differently. That one day I decided to open my eyes and open my ears. It's that one time where you heard the gospel and it just felt different. You heard it differently. It's that time you felt God. And I think it's something that we really have to understand well. It wasn't easy believing in God and having faith. We took a risk. Because think about this, the more valuable something is, the more expensive it becomes, right? So the thing that kind of throws us off when we want to tell people how valuable salvation is, right? We tend to talk about what happened to Jesus on the cross, that he did all this to give us salvation, right? And that's why it's kind of like a free gift. And essentially, that's kind of true in a sense. But we cannot negate what we went through just to get to that point. Because one thing is this. We kind of look at faith and belief as a very small thing. It's such a small thing to just believe and have faith. It's not a small thing to believe and have faith. We think that making $1 billion is more difficult than having faith and believing. But the thing about $1 billion is it's temporary. And there comes a point when you die and you'll never be able to spend or use that money ever again. It's temporary. But salvation is eternal. Salvation saves us from eternal suffering in hell, and it takes us to heaven for all eternity. We have to realize it wasn't easy, that what you went through, all your difficulties, all the disasters you went through in your life before you finally realized and believed in Jesus. It wasn't easy. And I'm telling you this, salvation isn't a cheap thing that you can just grab and take. It doesn't work that way either. Because even in John 3:16, we all know this verse, it says, whoever believes. To actually take the gift of Christ requires us to 100% believe that Jesus is the Messiah. It's a risk. It's a huge risk. And let me explain it to you in words that might help us to understand how big this risk is. The only thing that I can compare this risk to is falling in love. I think this is the best analogy we can use for having that faith in God. Before you fall in love, you got to make a choice. Before you fall in love. Right? You got to make a choice. Are you willing to pursue? Are you willing to love this person even though you cannot guarantee this person will love you back? That's a risk. It's an absolute risk, right? Because when you decide to love someone even though they don't love you back, right? Because that's how love works. Love isn't like two of you all of a sudden at the same time look at each other like this, I love you. And then both of you say, I love you at the same time. Like, oh, this is great. It doesn't work like that. Love, you guys all know, you guys have all had crushes and such in high school and in middle school, whatever it is. There's a huge risk. The first person, right? People have to make a choice to pursue a person and hope to God that they will choose you back. That happens before you fall in love. You have to make a choice whether you want to pursue this person or not. But when you are choosing to love someone before they love you back, it's like, we protect ourselves, especially our hearts, from people. And we put that heart into this really nice, strong box that people just can't get into. Because our hearts are delicate, it's very sensitive. But when you're falling in love, you cannot truly fall in love until you take that heart out of the strong box. And now it is open and vulnerable for that person to do whatever they want with it. And they don't have to receive your heart. They don't have to love you back. It's a risk. Love is one of the greatest risks we take in life. And we take that heart out of that strong box and we are essentially giving it to that other person before they even love us. And this is why every small thing that they do, it either brings us so much joy or incredible pain. That's a risk. The person who chooses to love first is taking their heart out of that strong box and giving it to someone who is not giving their heart back. That's the risk of love. It's a huge risk. The greatest risk we take when we come to God, when we come to Christ, in order for this to really happen, is we had to take our hearts out of that strong box and we had to give it to God. And this is why many people on that day when they received Christ, just in tears, that someone would want to love someone as sinful or as broken as we are. And that was a risk. Leaving your heart out vulnerable, uncertain of whether it will be accepted or received. But this is how we allowed God to enter our hearts. But let me take it one step deeper, right? Let's go a little bit deeper here. Like I said before, there's always two people that fall in love. Both have to take their hearts out of the strong box. But what did I say before? Even though both people are taking their hearts out of the strong box, who is taking the bigger risk? It is the person that opens their heart first. That's the bigger risk. Because it's easier when you didn't take yours out, someone gives it to you and you say, no, I don't want it. That's the easier way. It really is. Wouldn't you say it's easier to reject rather than take out your heart and allow someone to do anything they want with it and having the uncertainty of they may not accept it? The one who does it first is the one that actually loves more. They do it first. So my question to you, the deep secret we have to understand is, who is the first to open their hearts out of the strong box? And the answer is 1 John chapter 4, verse 18, right? And in 1 John chapter 4, verse 18, it says something really deep. It's like 6 words. Is it 6? 7 words. We love because he first loved us. Who took the risk? The greater risk was actually taken by God. It was taken by God. We have been the ones that had the choice whether to accept God's heart or not, or whether to open our hearts and give it to God too. We were the ones that had the choice. Yes, it was hard. It was difficult. But if you look at the reality of the world right now, how many have heard the gospel and how many have rejected? So many people have taken God's heart and crushed it, ripped it apart, and rejected it. God took the risk. What about Jesus? Jesus took the risk of dying on the cross first before we even accepted him. He just wanted to give the opportunity for us to gain salvation, and he gave up everything so that we can have that chance. He gave his heart first. He chose to love first. We're not the ones that took the bigger risk, even though it feels like it. And this is how we can really and truly realize how great, how deep, how wide God's love truly is. And this is why we're here. It's something that we have to understand is, was it a risk to believe in God? Oh yeah, it was a big risk because you had to do something. You had to leave yourself vulnerable. But in reality, it was God that took the biggest risk. He's the one that took it out first. And this is why we're all here today. Why do we love God? We love because he loved us first. We love Jesus. We believe in him. Why? Because he did it first. He died on the cross. He was beaten first so that he can show his love to us. And we had the choice to believe it or not. You know, great verse in Ephesians chapter 3, verses 16 through 19, right? It says, I pray that out of his glorious riches, he may strengthen you with power through his Spirit in your inner being, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. And I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power together with all the Lord's holy people to grasp how wide, how long, how high, and how deep is the love of Christ. And I hope that all of us will understand this is why we're here. And don't minimize what you've done too to believe in Christ, to believe in God. It wasn't a small thing. It was a big risk. And I hope that we too can really be faithful to that and say, God, this is how important salvation is that, I put in to receive that too. And what God is telling us now is salvation is so valuable that believing in Jesus, believing in God is just the beginning. The rest is, how will you live the rest of your life? And this shows God how valuable and how great you think salvation truly is. All right? So I hope that everyone really enjoyed today's podcast. I hope it's something that you guys, it would stir your thoughts, make you think even more deeply about our life, our faith. And I hope it's something that we too that, if you guys want to see big things like God working great in your life, you need to do great actions, more like greater risk. Like the example I gave in the beginning is, you either pray for someone's finger or their toenail or their headache, or you take the risk and pray for people who are even more sick, right? It comes to our life too, is when we're trying to go out and spread the gospel to people all around the world, you could spread the gospel to the people that you're comfortable with, or you could take the risk and spread the gospel to people that you are uncomfortable with too. These are the greater risks that we take to see greater things happen, all right? So I hope that all of us can have this time to just really think about how we live our lives for Christ, and every day we'll live the better and greater life too. Okay? So that's it, guys, for today. I hope you guys really enjoyed today's Rebel Pastor podcast. Lots of things to think about, a lot of things to think about in our hearts, things that we need to do. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them below. Would love to hear these from you also. Okay? So there it is, guys. That is today's podcast. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week. We'll see you guys again next week on the Rebel Pastor podcast. And this is Pastor Sky signing out. Bye-bye.
Rebel, never settle, I raise the level. It's time to go, sky's the limit, it's me against the world. Rebel pastor, ooh.